Hello! So I've started a new audiobook. It's called Ascension. This is a new release in the US, but it's a only relatively new release in the UK. So this is, I would say, a mix between sci-fi and literary fiction, probably heavy on the literary fiction at this point. I just finished part 2 as I'm talking to you about this, and it follows the life of a microbiologist who goes to investigate a vent in the ocean floor that is impossibly deep. And this leads her to a discovery that gets her on a team of people that are investigating into the wider universe now. It closely follows her life, her upbringing growing up in a very volatile, very abusive home, and how that affects life today as she's on this journey of new discovery. There's a lot of really interesting parallels already happening in her past life and how that's affecting her current life, how it's informing the decisions that she makes, as well as parallels between her life as a microbiologist and now this new role that she's playing in this whole new environment and new career field that she's been thrust into because of this discovery. There's a lot of, it's a very intimate story so far. It's taking its time with every facet of Lee's life. Lee is the main character, taking its time with every new thing that we're exploring about what she's been through and what she's currently going through, and how that all kind of connects and parallels one another. It takes each scene, each new discovery, each new section of her life, facet of her that we're exploring, has ample time to breathe. I've heard people call this novel slow, and I can certainly understand that assessment. I would agree it is slow, but it's more so intimate, where we are getting so deeply acquainted with every piece of this journey that Lee has been on from childhood on forward, and seeing how it all connects, how it all coexists in one life, and in how that life moves forward. Like I said, I'm only about halfway through the audiobook at this point, so lots more to discover, but so far I've been buddy reading this, not so far. In its entirety, I will be buddy reading this with Joanna and Jimmy, and we've had so much to discuss already. This has been a great book to buddy read because there's so many small details that are happening in Lee's past and present, and how that all is culminating together. And so we have had so many little details to talk about as we've been reading through it. Like I said, I'm only about halfway through with it, so there's still plenty more to discover, but that is my part 2 halfway point check-in. Welcome to the vlog. Ascension has been read. So I enjoyed this buddy read so much. This book was really, I don't remember everything that I said in the first clip. That's so typical of me. This book was really focused on the human condition, on humanity, on the nature of humans, their perspective of the world, their perspective of their day-to-day lives, the decisions they make, the way we process things. It was about life, the choices we make, and how the choices that we make affect the lives of each other and of the world. It was about trauma. It was about exploration. It was a story with parallels galore. It seemed like almost every talking point that this book had, which there were many, there was always a physical parallel happening in the story as well as it was being presented. Sometimes the parallels were very on the nose and a little bit heavy-handed. Sometimes they were very nuanced and beautiful. It's a really slow book. Oh my goodness. It can drag at parts. At least it did for me in certain parts. It's very introspective. It's very methodical. Each scene is given room and time to breathe, even if the most thrilling things aren't happening in that scene, because it's more focused on the people that are in the scene, what they're going through, how they're processing it, how they're dealing with it, what their life looks like, and how the things that happen at this point in their life inform what happens later on and inform the world view that they move forward with. I would definitely call this novel more literary than sci-fi, though there's loads of sci-fi elements happening within it. I think the focus is more on that introspection and on those questions being asked, on those parallels being drawn. It's a very intentionally written book. Every word felt like it was intentionally there. Every scene, even the ones that didn't seem as interesting in the moment, tied back to another scene later on. So it was very intentional, at times very moving, and really just called the reader to reflect along with the characters. I wouldn't call the characters in this book particularly rich in the sense that I would normally talk about a character being well fleshed out or well developed. I honestly think that almost every character in this book kind of read exactly the same, but I don't know if that was intentional or not, but I don't say that necessarily as a criticism, because I also think that the depth that we got from their personal journeys, their personal perspectives, their personal worldviews was really what the author was more focused on, if that makes sense. I am pretty mixed about how it ended, if I'm honest. Like I said, there were parts of this book that did drag for me, and the final section, part 5, was one of those. It honestly felt like a 100-page epilogue, and parts of it I thought were just extraordinarily done. There was one scene that kind of shifted my perspective on a lot of things, in the sense that it just brought me back to remembering that every person's perspective on the world is informed by their own experiences and their own traumas, and the things that they go through inform the way they view the world moving forward. So two people who have lived a life in tandem may have completely different perspectives on what that life was, if that makes sense. If you've read the book, you probably know what scene I'm talking about. I think thematically it all works really nicely together. But I did leave the book feeling kind of mixed on it. I've seen people come away from this book feeling like this book changed me, and I super understand why it would. I didn't have that experience. I'm a little bit mixed. There are things that I really liked about it, things that I didn't love about it as much. I think I would actually be more down on it if I hadn't buddy read it, because getting to each time we would come to one of those parallels or one of those themes that the author was tugging at the reader to discuss, we would hop into our group chat and discuss. And that made the reading experience so much richer, because we were bouncing these ideas off of each other. And how do you perceive this? What do you think about this decision that Lee made? Lee's the main character that Lee made. What do you think about this parallel with, Lee discovering these new things and going on this new journey, and at the same time at home, this is happening? And how do you feel about, we were kind of processing things as we went along with the story, which made my experience with this story so much stronger. But just speaking about it apart from the buddy read, I have mixed feelings. There's a lot of things about this book that I loved, and there's a lot of things about this book that just didn't really do much for me. Is that weird? I feel like I've said so many good things about the book and then I come away saying, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on it. I'm glad I read it, but it wasn't transformative for me, though I understand why it is for many. This is a book that won the Booker Prize, so a lot of people are reading it right now, and it does seem like it's getting kind of mixed opinions, so I'm really curious to hear what you think if you've read it. I also picked up book 3 of the Temeraire series. This one is called Black Powder War. I think I'm pretty early on. We actually just got past, the book started off with more travel, and some books can pull off travel sequences to be just so as good as any action scene because of how intense and personal and close they are. And I don't feel that way about these Temeraire books. Usually the travel sequences are my least favorite parts of these books. So this book started off with another travel sequence and I was like, no, not more of this. But quickly we moved past that, and then it just got into the drama. There's so much going on in the interpersonal dealings of Temeraire wanting to change certain systems that are in play for dragons, and Lawrence, the dragon rider, he's just a human, you know? He's grown up as a naval man, knowing the due process, knowing the way about things, and just being comfortable with the ways. And Temeraire is constantly pushing on Lawrence and pushing on Lawrence's human perspective and saying, but why? And Lawrence is like, he makes good points. But still, the ways of humans make sense to me, right? So there's more of that. There's also just cultural. As they travel the world, they're coming across a lot of hiccups, a lot of bumps in the road as they're learning to deal with people of different backgrounds and different cultures, different ideals, and learning how to figure that out too. So I'm getting into more of that kind of stuff, which I do think is what these books do well. I mean, what these books really do well is Temeraire, the dragon. But you know, I like this part too. So I'm reading that right now. I'm 30% into the book. So I will check in with you when I'm done with it. Good evening. It's late. Sorry that the lighting is bad, but I wanted to tell you, I wanted to finish up chatting with you about Temeraire Book 3 before the vlog ends, and I really enjoyed this. So there's a significant, there's plenty of travel in this book. I mentioned it at the beginning of the book, and there continues to be more travel as we go. The goal, at least in the first half of the book, is that we're acquiring more dragon eggs, and it progresses throughout the book, but that is a significant piece of what we're doing in the plot, as well as what Temeraire, the conflict of Temeraire wanting more equal rights as a dragon, wanting more freedoms and not to be treated as a possession. The same with the dragon eggs. We're selling these, we're not selling these, we're buying these, we're purchasing these, which means that it's a possessed object, which means that it's owned, which means that these dragons don't have autonomy. Shouldn't they though? Aren't we intelligent, sentient beings that should be treated as such? And that conversation gets explored a little bit more in the book as well, in different discoveries that come to pass that reinforce that yes, these are intellectual beings and not just animals to be bought and sold and owned, and to not have any control over their own will and their own future. Along with that, we also get more interaction and involvement in the war that we're participating in. This is all set during the Napoleonic Wars, and we get a little bit more as far as all that goes. We actually get to see Napoleon himself in this book, and plenty of combat, plenty of action, as well as plenty of humor. so many side characters that I care so much about. Some dragons as well as dragon riders that I became very attached to. I still think book 1 is my favorite of the 3 that I've read so far. I think it would go book 1, book 3, then book 2 as far as how I would rank them at this point. But I just enjoy these books, you know, like they're just, Temeraire is a delight. The character, the dragon, is a delight, and I just enjoy hanging out with him. But there are so many characters that are being built up that are really that I'm really enjoying as well. You know, I enjoy Lawrence as well, but certain side characters that have just won me over. And even there's an antagonist that has essentially set herself against them. She's like, it's gonna be my mission now to ruin your life. And I love her. This is very much a story that it's the characters that have won me over and that continue to keep me reading. There are definitely parts of the story that I don't think are perfect, but I just enjoy myself, you know. They're quick reads and they're sweet reads and I just enjoy them. So that's what I read this week. I read in Ascension, which is a sci-fi literary fiction book, and then I read Temeraire book 3, Dragon Riders, fantasy, sweet cozy times in war. Sweet cozy times in war. Please do chat with me more about either of these books if you have read them or if you're interested in chatting with me about them. I hope you enjoyed your week of reading. Sorry for a late night vlog clip, but this goes up tomorrow, so I just finished the book, so this is what you get. I'll see you again soon. Bye.